now your hosts for Clean Radio, Andrew and Judah.
Welcome to Clean Radio. How are you doing this week, Judah?
I'm great. Don't sound so excited.
Oh, I'm always so excited, you know.
Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
And again, we have our radio show on a night when people are celebrating
something else.
Yes.
Well,
it's Sundays.
It is.
It's a popular day for American holidays.
This is your great insight for the.
Well, you know, it's not like Jewish holidays when you never know when they're going to land.
And they're constant.
They are very constant. But you never know when, you know, with American stuff, it's always Sundays.
Right.
So it's either, but they're not moving for us.
No.
So not yet, at least.
So it's been an exciting week in addiction news. Everything is like still spinning out over Wienergate.
Yes.
And whether or not sex addiction is an addiction or just an excuse.
Yeah. It's funny because I heard somebody, I was watching Hannity the other night, and there's this political commentator named Bob Beckel.
Uh-huh.
And he's sober, and he openly admits that he's sober and in AA or in a 12-step program. But he was like talking about, he was like saying how he doesn't believe it. Basically, he was talking about there is a program called SA or SLA, you know, Sex and Love Addicts or Sex Addicts, and he was saying, oh, but it didn't work. You know, or like it really never formed. And I was like, and I was thinking to myself, have you actually, you know, was that just your opinion?
Right.
You know, obviously it was, because there are a lot of fellowships out there that do treat sex addiction. I have no idea if they're successful or not.
Well, I was at the Bill Maher taping show on Friday, and this was like their hot joke. You know, of course, again, they had 2 weeks in a row of getting to
Wiener.
I mean, it's perfect humor,
yes.
Right? And you know, they were all joking about like, what do these guys do before Twitter? You know, like, you know, was if the big thing was taking pictures of his crotch or whatever and texting him before texting or twittering, what did he do? You know?
Well, I mean, I think that's fair to say for a lot of people. I think the new medium for a lot of people has really just, you know, showed, you know, it's brought the worst out of people. Especially, I mean, here's the thing. Let's say you're about 16 or 17 years old now, or 18 years old. You've grown up with it. So, like, when you're 47, or you're, you know, and you found Twitter at the age of, and you found Facebook at the age of, like, 40, it's almost like you're a man-child. And you have all these
this
like.
This is all your experience.
Well, no, but it's
right, now that we've already delved into your pathology.
Yes.
Let's just introduce the guest.
Yes, yes. But
now that we've hit Judaism, right? Like,
but you laugh, but it's true.
Right.
You know, you and I are not of the age where everything was, you know, where we had computers. You have kids in school now that everything is that.
I had to use paper and pencil and actually draw my crotch.
Right.
It was way too difficult.
But I mean, do you remember those days? I mean,
I had to like pass it around the whole class.
When they had like the 19, you know, you were lucky. Like 2 kids had to share a computer during computer class, or 3 kids, and you were like.
I went to a school that was funded.
That was funded.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you're just special.
You were in Brooklyn.
Yeah, what do you? No, I was
Brooklyn.
actually.
There was like 12 kids for the computer.
I was in Washington Heights and not in public school.
Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
That's okay. But either way, we still had to share a computer.
Well, it was Jewish school, right?
It was Orthodox Jewish private school. Yes.
So they share.
Yes, we shared. I have no idea how that reference is, but
I don't know.
Supposedly it's.
Let's introduce who's here, because
yes,
those that are not seeing us online at a later date are only listening on the radio. So we have Dr. Ko again. Hello, Dr. Ko.
Hello.
Good evening. How are you?
Nice to be here. I'm good. Yeah.
And Judy, you have brought
a close, good friend of mine, world famous.
Not so much.
Jim Clemente.
How you doing, Judah?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good.
And
good to be here.
I'm sorry again that I'm myself. And Jim is actually, he's a former FBI profiler. Was in the FBI for 23 years.
Actually 22.
22.
Okay.
I was close. I did the math.
That's as close as Judah can get.
That's it.
Not a year, plus or minus.
It's like 110% for everything for Judah.
And
he
he's
loves
also
to say that.
He's
110%.
110%.
I'm like, Judah, 100% is all of it. He's like, he doesn't get that.
He gives extra.
He gives extra.
He's also a writer and a technical advisor on one of the best shows on TV, Criminal Minds. Top 10 show, probably.
Yeah, it's been a great experience doing that for the last. This is our 7th season we're starting now. It's,
That's amazing.
Pretty successful. Yeah, I was also a prosecutor in New York City before I became an FBI agent.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
In the Bronx.
Oh,
The
okay.
Bronx, wow.
Boogie down.
How old were you?
I was right out of law school. So it's.
So it's criminal court? You were
20
just...
Yeah, 25, 26, 27.
It's pretty. And you were, it was a fun car ride down because you shared one of your cases with us.
Yeah, well.
That was an
Yeah.
episode of Criminal Minds,
Yeah.
and we
Not
are.
exactly a fun case, though.
No, I'm sure.
Rather grim case.
What we were talking about was whether it was stressful or not.
Yeah.
And Judah didn't believe that being an FBI agent was stressful. Judah thought that it would all be fun.
Yes, it's all like with that. It all resolves itself at the end of every episode.
And then Jim got to tell us about how somebody fed somebody to somebody else, and Judah turned white.
Yeah.
I actually did. I was. That is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, unfortunately and fortunately, the Behavioral Analysis Unit is part of the FBI's National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crimes, so we study violent and sexual crimes 24/7 and are able to share that information with law enforcement across the country and around the world. The unfortunate part is that you're immersed in the worst evil that men can do. So, yeah, it adds a little stress to your life.
Is there any sort of prevention? I mean, I know that's going to sound, but with everything you've learned so far, with everything we've learned, is there any way of learned? Is there any way of like pre-diagnosing somebody whether they have that inclination?
Well, there are. First of all, it's very dangerous when you talk about predicting human behavior. But the best indicator of future human behavior is a past pattern of behavior. So there are risk assessment models that are fairly effective in determining whether or not somebody is going to engage in violent behavior. It is sort of a tripping or tipping point. There are a lot of crimes that people can do that are fairly easy to accomplish without really having to change anything internally. But when you actually are going to be violent to another human being, there's a certain amount of critical mass of violence capacity that you have to have. And for most people, fortunately, that's a difficult wall to get over. But for others, rationalizations help them get over it very easily. And of course,
do you think that's genetic or it's?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, I think the best minds in the fields are all agreeing that it's a combination of bio, psycho, and social. You have to have a genetic predisposition, or at least a propensity or potentiality genetically, but then you have to have your personality has to basically filter the experiences you have, and the combination of the three can put you over that line.
And I think it's a massive failure of attachment that begins to lead people down this road.
I think that certainly is a contributing factor, but I think if you don't have the potential and if you don't have the personality,
I certainly agree with the biopsychosocial, which any mental disorder falls into.
Absolutely. But what I was saying is that I think the actual choice component of that is your personality, which I think, certainly you're born with a certain amount of it, but that the billions of little micro decisions that you make throughout your life actually help shape your personality and help filter whatever experiences you go through. So that's where there's still a free will component in it. And of course, it can, as I said, reach a critical mass where it's really not a choice anymore. You're just driven to do it. But I think that everybody participates in their own development.
Well, a lot of times I hear people say when they're drinking or when they get sober, they go, "No, alcohol made me do it," and I'm always like, "No, alcohol allowed you to do it.
Right.
It didn't make you do anything you didn't want to. There's like something in you."
It's disinhibiting. Right.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we call it we use it exactly in that way when we're profiling a case. We'll say sometimes that it could be that alcohol or substance abuse helped lower inhibitions and allowed this person to give themselves permission to do this, to take advantage of somebody or to go with something they really
But you're saying is they had it in them in the first place.
Yes.
Actually, I don't think I've ever treated someone who's a victim of incest or sexual abuse where alcohol or drugs wasn't involved.
Right.
Well, I mean, certainly since I was...
In regards to incest, I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked a tremendous number of those cases in my career. I mean, thousands, many thousands of those. I was an expert in, still am, an expert in child sexual victimization and sex crimes. And I think what's important to know is that every single crime and every single set of behaviors is a spectrum of behaviors. And I think you have extremes on both sides, but a lot of gray area in between. And I think there are certainly a number of them that have, alcohol and substance abuse foundations, But I think there are a number of other ones that are really, there are sadistic ones that are on a far ends of the extreme, and there are ones that are situational. And I think in most situational, I think the majority of those alcohol and drug-related cases are in situational offenders, those that aren't necessarily sexually attracted to children, but in a given situation, if their inhibitions are lowered a certain amount, they will go ahead and offend.
The number here, by the way, is 877-8830-830. That's 877-8830-830. You're listening to Clean Radio. We're in the studio tonight with our resident psychoanalyst, therapist, Dr. Jason Coe, and
psychiatrist
extraordinaire, and Jim Clemente, former FBI profiler, writer for one of the writers for the hit show Criminal Minds, and you have a few of your own shows coming out for A&E and ION. It sounds like, it's funny when you talk about TV networks, it sounds like you're doing the alphabet. But, let's go back. Let me ask you a question. Okay, so a lot of times you meet people that beat their wives, right? So there are two types of people that beat their wives. People that don't need alcohol to beat their wives, and some people that do need alcohol to beat their wives. Would one be way more sadistic?
Well, I think, you just simplified it quite dramatically.
Yes, well, it is right.
It's
another Judaism.
Yes, it's definitely a Judaism. Okay, so two people.
There's only two people.
If we were going to go with that hypothetical, I think, as I said just before, it's dangerous to try to put human being and human behavior into neat little pigeonholes. I think there's a spectrum of behavior, and you may have pointed out two different points along that spectrum. And yes, the people who sort of need the alcohol to beat their wives may have a little more humanity in them, and they have to lower their inhibitions. The people that beat their wife for control probably are more sadistic.
Let's say one thing for everybody listening now. What we're talking about are people who are severely disturbed. Okay?
Wow.
We're not talking about your average human being.
Right, but to get help, wouldn't the one that would beat their wives while drinking alcohol be probably a lot easier to help than the one?
Yes, they're probably not as disturbed.
Right.
Because they do have some inhibitions when they're not drinking.
Right.
But the ones who don't, who are outright engaging in this behavior, talking about severely disturbed individuals.
Yes.
And what Jim's pointing out is there's a wide spectrum. And, my
There
God,
is.
you've seen so many people, the great variation in these sort of human characters and humankind in general.
Right.
That's something Andrew and I were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Jason and I come from, Dr. Coe, and I come from the position of, working in the field of treating people and looking at pathology and then trying to find treatment for pathology. You've come from the criminal side as a prosecutor and as a profiler. So you see the behavior as pathological and criminal, right?
I look at it that way, yes. But I've also spent a great deal of time actually interviewing people after they've been convicted.
Right.
And also, I've sat in on offender treatment programs because I think it's important not only to learn from them, but also to share our theories and our typologies with them and test them on the real world. So I thought it was very instructive sitting in groups and talking to these guys and sharing their experiences with me and me sharing my experiences with them in terms of what I've seen. And of course then testify as an expert, sort of putting it to the ultimate test in the judicial system. And it's
so
been
we
very
deal with
illuminating.
alcohol and addiction on the show, and then obviously once people if they become in recovery, how their life's changed and what's possible. So, I mean, it must be very jading having sort of engaged in the life and work that you've done. I mean, because
Well,
you've seen the worst of the worst, right?
That's true, and that's how we started this off. It is the worst of the worst. But what is refreshing, what is great, is the fact that I do believe that there is a certain choice component in this whole genre, and that is, you wouldn't have recovery if people couldn't choose to try to avoid the triggers or the situations or the substances that actually help them do this.
Right.
And so,
I'm
because
glad
that,
to hear somebody say that.
Yeah.
'Cause, most of the time people are saying, I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, and I, if that were the case, then we wouldn't be able to prosecute them criminally. If they had no choice in the matter,
Yeah.
then there is no crime. You have to be
Right.
aware of what you're doing, and you have to know that it's wrong, and you have to be able to control that behavior in order for you to be successfully prosecuted for it. So I would be, a hypocrite if I said that they didn't have some sort of choice.
Did that offer you some sort of hope, knowing that there was help?
Sure, and there are certain people that are beyond help. There's
Yeah.
no question. And as I was saying before, I was talking about situational offenders versus preferential offenders. And I think if we look at the spectrum of offenders in that way, where some people offend because they're in a given situation or the circumstances are such that they just, their inhibitions are lowered enough or there's high enough stress level that they act out. And there's the other end of the spectrum where they actually engage in long-term fantasies about offending. It basically rules their life. They're very compulsive about this, and they love the thought of it. And some of them actually really, sort of embrace the whole idea of whatever their pathology is, or whatever their psychopathology, or whatever their mental disorder, or whatever their desires are, their illegal desires are. And those people, I think, you have a much more difficult time treating or changing than you do somebody who's a situational offender.
Yeah, that's their identity.
Yeah, it's certainly a core part of their identity.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
And we started this evening talking about Representative Weiner, former Representative Weiner, right?
Future mayor of New York, probably.
Who obviously had, a compulsive issue with sex, right?
I'd like to talk about that. a
Yeah,
little bit
how would you
because-
profile him? I mean,
Yeah,
would you consider it normal? I mean, how many people have taken a picture of their crotch and texted it? Do we know?
Well, do we have to ask
Is it-
that?
Why are you looking at me? Why is everybody in the studio looking
I know
at me?
a lot of people can't see that, but the color.
I got it,
and
okay.
I know. I was about to go like this and realize that nobody else in the studio would raise their hands. Okay.
So
So we're saying 25%.
Yes.
I think that's about
And our
accurate.
two cameramen, okay? Because Samir is laughing very hard over there.
So he's maybe laughing at you, but
Yes, probably.
But the point is that whether it's an addiction or whether it's there seems to be, in my experience, and this is only anecdotal, but in my experience, there's a certain level of recklessness that comes with power,
Right.
and that I think it's an intoxication in and of itself. When somebody gets to a particular position, they've achieved, a tremendous amount in their lives. They're almost drunk with that power, and I think they act irresponsible sometimes. I think it lowers their inhibitions, and they act in a way that.
See, my
gets them
my
into
theory
trouble.
was that he couldn't handle it, and he
Self-sabotaging? Like
self-sabotaging,
Tiger
yeah.
Woods?
Yeah.
There's certainly that guilt component that he couldn't handle it, but I'm thinking about the omnipotence of this guy
Right.
and feeling like he could get away with
Well,
it.
think about the week afterwards. I mean,
Well,
where he's
pathologically lying.
basically challenging every media organization in America
Because he thought he was.
Because you're right. Because he
That's the omnipotence.
right. He thinks he's got a god complex.
Yeah, and I think the danger is, again, let's not label it one way.
Right.
I think it's a combination of all these things that we've
Of
just
course.
mentioned, and I
Yeah.
think that's the great thing, and the most difficult thing to predict with human behavior is the complexity of it.
Right. Every behavior has multiple factors.
Right, but it
actually.
doesn't make it fun in America because we have to name everything.
But you see,
Determinants
to me,
is
I mean, the guy's a
you.
politician.
Yeah.
He just qualified. He's like the ultimate pathological liar. That's what a politician
Right.
is, right?
Right.
That's one of the prerequisites.
Right?
Yes, right.
I mean, and how many? I mean, if you think about it now, I mean, how many of our past politicians would have been in this storm?
Well,
if the new
I can remember a
media.
president that had a little of a problem.
But can you imagine if Bill
Newt
Clinton
Gingrich was
right? But can you
banging
imagine
his-
if Bill Clinton was president now? There were 14 websites, I believe, when Bill Clinton ran for president in 1992. Can you imagine now? It's like the old thing with FDR. If everybody had seen him in the wheelchair, he never would have won.
Sure,
right.
If the web was now and Bill Clinton was
Kerry,
running now,
yeah.
he wouldn't get past the state.
Right. Okay. So I mean, I did the Whitewater investigation. I was on that case for 3.5 years, and there was a lot of
How cool is that?
Yeah.
pretty cool.
a lot of details that didn't come out in the news because we weren't there to investigate and publicize what we found. But it's very interesting. If you look at his personality, it's right there for you. I mean, he grew up the child of an alcoholic parent, right?
Stepfather, right? Also.
Yes. And he basically didn't get a lot of attention. He felt like he was basically an outcast. He really wanted people to like him. So it's the perfect personality for a future politician. He learned how to get people to like him, to love him instantly. He remembered little details about everybody he ever met. It became part of his personality. And that's why he was such a great politician. He could make you feel like you were special to him. And that's how he gained a tremendous amount of support.
Exactly.
So that also, then, when he got there, and there were statements that he actually made, like, I can't believe how these women are throwing themselves at me. Wow, it's just amazing. Because remember, his childhood was always kind of trying to attain that. And now the opposite was happening.
Right, it's
He
like
was getting
Wiener,
flooded
in a
with it.
sense.
and that
Wiener is a 47-year-old man that's basically, he was like the hall monitor in school.
At
And
best.
he's got, at best, and he's got
Well, I
all
love
these...
how he resigns and he goes, I don't know what to do now. This is the only
Yeah,
job
this is
I've
right. He
qualified
said it
to
before. Like, what
How
else am I
scary
going
is
to
that,
do?
right?
And he's been doing it since he's 26. But
Right.
again, he's got a porn star following him. He's got a young 26-year-old. For a guy like that, it's almost like when you see somebody make $80 million in a new contract, in a new football contract, that comes from a trailer. What else?
See, if Judah became president and a porn star started following him, he would lose.
the game over.
Game over.
Yeah, I should resign the next
You don't even
day.
have to, you don't even have to profile him, Jim. You just know.
And
I don't even think it would have to be a porn star.
Right.
Any attention from any woman
which goes
would
to
be enough.
really funny is Jim was also the lead investigator or the head investigator with the Casey Anthony.
I was one of the profilers on the case.
one of the profilers on
What case was that?
the
Casey
Casey
Anthony,
Anthony that
a girl
that's all over the news
There was a
right now.
trial in Florida where
For killing her.
she killed her daughter.
Oh.
Supposedly.
You didn't
Went
get
out-
your Nancy Grace highlight reel this
Yeah.
week? What's going on?
Went out partying for a month, and when her, her daughter was disposed of in a plastic bag in a swamp.
And so we're in the AM PM station, and Jim was on CNN a few weeks ago talking about the case, and he shows me there's two pictures on his iPhone, one of him on CNN and one of this girl holding a baby. I go, oh, she's hot. And he goes, that's Casey Anthony. So
Judah seems to be more concerned about the physical appearances of someone rather than their
That's why he became an alcoholic.
psychopathic past.
well, I mean, if you think about it like this, every time you see these new cases of these teachers, of these female teachers sexting their kids, that's a whole other thing. We have a new wave of female teachers hitting on their students, sexting their students.
Wait a minute. The media has a new wave.
Right.
I have
Right.
350 cases that I've studied over the past 10 years. It's not a new wave. I mean, there's been celebrated cases for decades.
Right.
I think you're just seeing it be cumulative, the cumulative
Hot
effect
for
of it on
teacher
TV. Well,
was Van Halen, 70 what?
Right, well,
or 80 maybe, I guess.
it's funny you mention that because there's a very celebrated woman Mary Kay Letourneau,
Yeah.
Right.
who
Had a
offended
baby with
against
a
a
kid.
13-year-old boy, and then when she got out of jail, she came back and had sex and got pregnant with him again, and then
Right.
when she got out of jail the third time, actually married him, and he's a DJ, and they actually do Hot for Teacher nights on Thursday where they sell T-shirts about
Unbelievable.
Hot for Teacher. I mean, it's outrageous, but there's a double standard in this country.
Well, that's what I was
And
gonna-
I think if you look at and I did a study of what kind of sentencing that teachers got in those cases where there were male victims, female teachers, and if the teacher was hot. Typically they got less than a year in jail, 9 months probation, where if the teacher wasn't hot they could get 13, 15 years in jail.
What about if it was male? If the teacher was male?
It's almost always much higher sentences.
Well, it's
So-
amazing in this country. I always say this. I mean, I listen. I heard somebody say this years ago, and I thought it was a great point. Bill Clinton he had ugly women. You know, and I always say, had he decided to have affairs with hot women, he would have been. I mean, that we know of. I mean, obviously, I know there were a few hot women.
It's your determination that they're ugly women.
Paula Jones exactly wasn't the most. Linda Tripp exactly wasn't the most exciting looking.
Linda Tripp did not have any kind of relationship with Bill Clinton. I think
where are you getting this knowledge?
Monica Lewinsky.
Okay, now Monica's different, but he did like Zoftic women.
Yes, he liked.
The women would have been more in the Renaissance. Would have been much more considered beautiful.
So my point was that the women in America were okay with him because he was attainable. Had he been like stooping these like 5'11" Amazonian women in America would have been like, oh, you're horrible, you're rotten. But they looked at him.
You think Judah could work for the FBI?
Yeah, well,
has he got a chance?
I think he'd really be better as a politician.
Well, I don't know. You like them a little chubby?
No, I'm not a chubby chaser. No. And the number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe, and world-renowned former FBI profiler, writer for the hit show, one of the writers for the hit show Criminal Minds, and a few shows coming out on A&E and ION. Jim Clemente. You're in the studio. You're listening to Clean Radio. That's Clean with the K. And the number here is 877-830-830. We're going to go out for a small break, and we will be back in a few minutes.
Do you or someone you know need help overcoming addictive disorders? Call us now at 877-830-830.
Welcome back to Clean Radio. More Judah Dance. I really encourage people to go to cleanradio.com and check out the Judah Dance video.
Yes.
It's horrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
Funny. Yeah, horrible and funny. They go together.
Just make sure you have a therapist nearby.
I have basically two. I'm surrounded every week.
Time equals comedy.
Yes, I'm surrounded every week. I'm constantly getting profiled.
Actually, profiling is only necessary when it's not obvious on its face.
So the insecurities of me that just are out there.
Well,
Dr. Coe?
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
He's not even paying attention anymore. He's
like Judah was talking.
You're right about psychoanalysts. They never listen.
They don't.
They just sit there.
Wouldn't it be great though if you could get into if we had a fly in the minds of therapists as they're listening to people? I would just love to be sitting there as Dr. Coe is psychotherapist.
Psychoanalyzing. I think it would be a great opportunity for a comedy to have little bubbles floating there.
Absolutely. I mean,
you're agreeing.
I mean, when you're listening to somebody, you're having your own fantasies go on, and you learn to listen not only to the patient, but you listen to your own fantasies and your own dialogue, because that informs you about the patient.
Right. You're transference.
Yeah, you're right. You're counter-transference to their transference.
How do you know you could become a profiler? I mean, did they? It's
a long process. When I went through the FBI Academy, one of the legendary profilers, Pete Smerick, came and spoke to our class when I was a new agent trainee, and I went up to him afterwards and said, "Man, I really love what you do. I think it's the most amazing way to use your brain. I really want to do that." And he said, "Yeah, kid, come back in 10 years and see me." And during that time, basically I got experience doing violent crime cases and large major cases and task force cases. And
what attracted you to the FBI in the first place?
Well, actually, it's an interesting story, I guess. I was a prosecutor, and I think as a kid I always wanted to be a detective, but knew I had to go to college and didn't think of going going backwards to go from college to the police department.
Right.
I never thought about the feds, but when I was a prosecutor, I worked a case with the FBI and talked to the agent who was an attorney also. And he talked to me about the fact that FBI agents were really federal detectives, and I just thought it was a great opportunity. He recruited me, and I ended up on the same squad that I just worked with. Which is another story.
How many years were you a prosecutor?
I was a law clerk in the prosecutor's office for 2 years, and then a prosecutor for 3 years, and then I left and went into the FBI. I was there for 22 years.
He's profiling you right now.
We're profiling each other.
I know the room's heating up.
I know, Andrew and I, we're just like staying silent, like,
so I'm-
like please don't profile us.
like
That's the
getting-
bubbles out of our head.
It's called like getting to know each other.
Yeah.
No. This is
Called
my
human interaction. Yes.
this is my night of non-disclosure.
Yeah. Andrew's like sitting there like this.
I'm just all tight.
Yeah, but you see, he's actually actively interviewing me, and I'm passively interviewing him. I'm listening to the questions he's asking, and it tells me what kind of insights he wants to know about me, which are important. I think he's
Exactly,
asking
yeah.
questions that are meaningful, not just superficial, like others.
Okay, so here's a non-superficial question.
From Judah? Wait,
From
that's
me.
not gonna
Here's a
happen.
So you how long did you profile for?
12 years.
And what's the average span of people that do profile?
Well, usually if you get into the unit, you stay till you retire. I retired at 50 rather than waiting till I was 57 because I went through cancer and some pretty serious health issues after that. And I knew that the stress of the job was actually not very healthy for me.
Well, that's where I was
wanted
going
to
with
do
that.
something more creative.
That's where I was going with that. Is like, how do most people cope? I mean, because the stories you were sharing in the car. It's hard for me to hear about somebody.
Yeah. Well, I think people have to find their own mechanism. There's a safeguard program within the FBI that you can go to anytime if you have a substance abuse problem. If that substance abuse problem involves alcohol, then typically they will help you out and clean you up and get you right back to work. But if it involves illegal drugs, that can be counterproductive to being an actual FBI agent. So that may end up in your termination as an agent, but they certainly will try to help you out with your problems. But I think that people all find things that they do. I mean, there are a couple people there who write music and play songs. There are some people who, like myself, I like to buy old houses and restore them. I liked breaking down stuff that was falling apart and putting it back up the way it was originally made. I like doing that. I think that at the end, seeing something positive that you've done with your hands, I thought that was very therapeutic for me.
I
Other
used to
people
do
have
that.
different- Excuse me.
I used to restore old houses in New Orleans.
Yeah, see, it's a great. And there's
You
beautiful
guys are like
houses
fast
there.
friends.
Like doppelgangers.
Yeah.
I feel like we got two.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Let's get out of here.
I did
Andrew.
in St. Louis too. St. Louis has some beautiful architecture as well, just like New Orleans does. And I think people find their own sort of way to do that, and some people engage, dive deeply into their families and are able to put it away when they get home. Other people lose their families as a result of it, and there's a certain amount of drinking that goes on, and and there's a certain amount of dark humor to blow off the steam of the stress and the horrendous situations that you have to work in. But in order to do that job, you have to develop a clinical detachment, and if you don't, then you'll go crazy, because you have to remove yourself emotionally so that you can actually analyze the behavior that's involved and not get caught in sort of the human drama.
Exactly.
So do you think that addiction is a disease?
Well, I think I think there's a spectrum of that. I think a certain component of it for some people is absolutely disease-like, and I think for other people, it's a symptom. It's more of a symptom of something else that's really wrong in their lives. And some people develop crutches. I mean, it depends what your substance of choice is or your behavior of choice is. I mean, some people choose gambling or fall into gambling. Other people, alcohol, drugs, or whatever, or obsessive behaviors or obsessive loves. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that manifests.
One of the things that we've spoken about a few times on the show is that we look at different personality characteristics or traits and can almost invariably pick the type of substance people will abuse.
Oh, really?
Based on their personality disorder or personality traits. Do you have similar sort of ideas to that? Like, if I said, meth, could you give the general type of personality you think would become addicted to meth?
Well, meth is today's crack. It's easier and cheaper to get and make, and it's a local drug. You can manufacture and use it here. So I think that there's an ease with both of those drugs. I think both of those drugs have become sort of breakout addiction drugs, and
they're so available.
Yeah, so available. And when people figured out in the '80s that you could take $1,000 worth of cocaine, mix it with a little baking soda, and cook it on your stove, and make $15,000 worth of crack.
Right.
wow. And then the high was so much more immediate and, you know, exhilarating. I mean, it just they just knew that they had something much better and much more addictive that could make them a lot more money. It also ramped up the violence involved with drugs, I mean, exponentially. So, you know, I stay away from saying that there's a stereotypical user, just like there's a stereotypical, you know, serial killer, because you know, I think that human behavior is nuanced, and there's a lot of factors that go into anybody's behavior at any given time, and it can change over time.
In profiling, you must have to know a lot about just general culture and subcultures and sort of the new tribalism in our culture. There's so many different subcultures within our culture.
Right, and I think it's important to know that and how historically it has changed. I think the key component of profiling is the think tank, perspective viewpoint. In other words, we sit around a table and everybody has their own set of personal experiences, education, training, experience in that field, and they all look at it from a different perspective. And it's by pulling apart from all these different perspectives that we're able to see into crimes and get so much of more of a perspective on who did it. So what we actually do is just narrow down the suspect pool.
Is it a group process?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is, and it's built around the institutional knowledge that we've gained from interviewing offenders,
right,
and basically chronicling what they did, how they developed, and how they committed their crimes and got away with it.
And so what's the goal of profiling?
Profiling is actually an investigative tool to actually narrow down the list of suspects, to reverse engineer a crime based on the behavior exhibited at the crime, the pre-offense behavior, the offense behavior, and the post-offense behavior. And so we break that down, reverse engineer back to the type of person who committed that crime. It kind of got a bad name with racial profiling, which is actually the opposite, which is basically saying people who have a certain set of characteristics will commit crime in the future.
That's actually likely commit.
Yeah, and that's actually not what we do. What we do is we look at a crime that's been committed or a series of crimes, we look at the behavior exhibited at those crimes, and we reverse engineer back to the type of person who commits that crime.
So it's all behavioral. It's not based on any fixed characteristics.
Well, it's all behavioral. There are some fixed characteristics, but it depends on the crime. I mean, there's
like
certain things.
Socioeconomic status.
Well, it can be, but that will be exhibited in the behavior. In other words,
Right.
you know, where is this guy comfortable in committing his crime? How did he pick their victims? How did he pick this particular victim at this particular time, in this particular place, in this particular manner, for a particular purpose? All those choices reflect back on him. And then where the crime scene, where exactly did he do this? The crime location. Did he do this in the middle of a farm in Iowa, or did he do it in Times Square? And the level of criminal sophistication that it takes to pull off a crime in one of those places is radically different. So by making those choices, it shows you where he's comfortable, where he can do this, where he's capable of pulling off a crime, and so he's leaking out information about himself just by those choices.
You know, one of the things that I think has been fascinating since the 80s till now, which is about the time you've been profiling, right?
Sure.
Is that I've seen, personally as a clinician, a dramatic shift in popular culture and also advertising culture towards men. There's been a real change in how men are viewed in our culture and how they're marketed to, and also the same is true with women in that they've been more freed up to sort of become more of this androgynistic sort of male type.
Well,
they're able to express their masculine traits more as women. Have you seen that in pathology and within profiling? Is that adjusted? Like, do you see more women being profiled for criminal cases that would have traditionally only been thought of as that's got to be a man that's doing that crime?
Well, that's why I undertook the study of female sex offenders, because I think, you know, since the Letourneau case, I think that was sort of a watershed moment where we really got inside someone and saw such extended long-term behavior exhibited by her that we started actually studying that. And like I said, I've collected about 350 cases since then, many of which never hit the news, but you know, it really shows that the offenses, that the sophistication level of the crime, the way that they're able to use their place in society as a shield, so that nobody suspects them. You know, the mother's being happy that the teacher would come to my house and tutor my son alone in his bedroom at night. You know, that kind of stuff. And I'm taking it to the extreme, but basically, it was so much more difficult for people that never would have happened if it was a female student and a male teacher.
Right.
But the fact that she was a female, she was welcomed into the home. So, and that happens many times. So, yeah, I think it has changed crime in a way, and I think the internet has changed crime dramatically because not only can you continue to do the things you did before, but now you can actually get into the bedrooms and of children all over the world. You can pose
In their minds.
Yeah, you can pose. A 47-year-old male can pose as a 12-year-old girlfriend.
I think also one of the things I've been noticing is a lot of female bullies out there.
Well,
I mean, I'm sure that's been around for ages.
I think there's a great book called The Art of Social War, and Jody Wing wrote it, and she takes Sun Tzu's The Art of War and applies it to social warfare between women. And let me tell you, the way she describes it, it is vicious. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And she's actually started a program in some of the inner city schools in L.A. For little girls, for 8-year-old girls, trying to teach them the art of conflict resolution, because the way they get socialized it's very vicious. It's very clique-oriented. And it's brutal to some of these girls who don't meet Judah's beauty requirements.
Well, I was reading my roommate's People today, and I was reading my roommate's.
So Judah actually indirectly is responsible for all female bullying.
I do think so.
Yeah,
I think he's encouraging it.
But it's really fun. I was reading People today, and
People,
because that's what we're all.
He's doing the highbrow research.
Because that's what we were all about. And it's my roommates, and you know my roommate Danny. What's it called? And they have this like, I swear to God, 7 pages of the perfect body. And I don't fit in, obviously, into any of these pages. But all I can think about is they're showing this to women out there. And the next week on People magazine is going to be like, oh, the problem with anorexia in America. Right. You know exactly that's going to be the story next week. And so really, there's such an irresponsibility out there.
Well, they create their own news. I mean,
you go through Facebook and you see, it's so sad. It's true. You see so many of these girls out there that are taking pictures of themselves, living up to some crazy standard that guys don't like.
That's not what you were saying earlier, though. You were perpetuating this idea that Bill Clinton's women were just horrendous.
Yes, they were, and that's why. Listen, I am a hypocrite, and I openly admit that.
By the way, we were told that on the break by the profilers.
Jim said I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah, he goes, he's a hypocrite. And then you walk,
and I'm going to get him to admit it in the next 15 minutes.
Right, you succeed.
Without even having me knowing I'm doing it.
It's unbelievable.
Well, that's why he's a pro.
That's why he's a pro. Yeah.
Do you think? No, but actually, there's a funny. It's if you watch over IDTV, Investigation Discovery, they have this whole slew of shows now called like Deadly Women, and a bunch. So I guess they are starting to break the mold. They're starting to get out more of crimes.
Well, I think that like I said earlier, I think the media is talking about that more now. I think there's been a number of studies, and I think if you look at the studies that are out now, 7 to 14% of the violent crimes and sexual crimes that are committed in this country are committed by women as a primary offender, and up to 40% as a helper, or facilitator. So they're actively engaged in crimes. There's no question about it.
And we only hear about like the famous ones in the past, like Eileen Warmis or.
Well, we see this in drug and alcohol addiction too. Is that for a long time women weren't thought of really as being drug addicts or alcoholics, and yet we know that women have been abusing like speed in the 50s like crazy, right? And and there's still diet pills is a huge drug abuse.
Well, aren't they trying to keep up with men? I mean, they're trying to deal with the same stresses, and they're trying to compete with men who are doing the same thing. And I think it's natural when you're in a situation, a competitive situation like that, that they'd fall susceptible to the same kind of, negative substances that are out there.
I also, I could be wrong on this. I probably am, but as a society, we are definitely we are definitely caretakers. And when you see a woman in trouble, you don't want to see a woman in trouble. And I'll go to a movie.
Socialized as men,
right?
To be fixers.
Right.
We hear about a problem, we want to fix it.
Right. So you see a movie like The Days of Wine and Roses. It's a very hard movie to watch. One of the most famous movies about alcoholism. it's what's hard about the Days of Wine and Roses. You see this woman falling into the abyss.
Well, I think maybe some of your listeners don't know that movie, and that's what I'm trying to get you to describe.
If nobody has seen this movie, it starred Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick. I think so, right? Lee Remick, am I right on that?
Yeah, I think
Please, somebody help me out on this.
Just tell us what it's about.
It's about alcoholism. It's about a couple that meet, and they meet over alcohol, basically, and they dip into the abyss of after years of drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking, and then the husband wants to get sober, and the wife doesn't, and basically.
Is this a spoiler alert?
No, I mean the statute of limitations on that movie is over. Okay, it's 50 years old. I don't think you can't ruin a movie. It's like I'll never forget. When I first got sober, I was dating this girl, and we went to see that movie, The Hurricane. And I don't know if anybody out there has seen that, but it was with Denzel Washington portrayed.
No, another spoiler alert.
And I did spoil it. And I go an hour and a half in, I go, oh, it's amazing that he got out of jail. And she goes, why'd you ruin it for me? And I go, do you realize this has been in the news every day? And we really got into this huge fight where she ran out of the movie theater because I ruined the.
Well, let's ask the most important question, though.
Yeah. Yes.
Was she beautiful?
She was a optic type of girl. To dissuade your whole point.
So is that the basis of why you judge women?
Let's get back to my point. You're going off topic, but no, I think in America. I think in America we don't want to see, as a culture, we don't like to see women doing certain things. That's just me. I could be totally wrong.
It's called misogyny.
Yes, we are definitely a misogynistic society. And I think these cases with women, for years, we didn't want to look at them. And now we're finally maybe coming to the point where we could handle it as a culture.
Well, I think it's good news. It's good news because it's drama. And, actually news and media actually in this country sells conflict and drama, and that gets them ratings, and that keeps the advertisers coming in. So it does help, because especially if you have someone who is traditionally thought of as beautiful, who's actually committed horrendous crimes, we see that as a sort of contradiction, a dichotomy. Right. Well, I mean, I'm here to tell you that it's not at all, because people who commit crimes look like everyone.
Right.
And it crosses the entire spectrum. Looks do not indicate what kind of criminal activity is being committed by a person, or what's going on in their brain. And when we see somebody who has this classic beautiful look, or this classic beauty, or a strong jaw in a man, we think, oh, that person has integrity, and all these other things that we impose. And if you look at the majority of CEOs, people that have risen to that level in business, you'll see the tall, strong men are the norm, and very few women, even though they could be just as capable or more capable. And I think we attribute these things to looks, and it's a very dangerous thing in our society, because we fall victim to people who look good.
Well, I remember in the 80s, growing up in New York, you had the Preppy murder.
Right.
And I don't know if you're familiar with that.
My wife was, my first wife, I should say, actually dated him.
Robert Chambers was his name?
Yeah.
Really?
And
she was going to Dalton in New York.
And I remember everybody's shock. Everybody's shock.
That should have been a warning to
with
you.
this guy.
Yeah, it should have been a warning that I should have stayed away from her.
Yeah.
She would choke me all the time in the park. I don't know what that was about.
She must have been beautiful.
Right, our first date
She
was in
beautiful.
Central Park. And you're listening to Clean Radio. The number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. We're in the studio tonight with Dr. Jason Coe, former FBI profiler Jim Clemente, and we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a couple seconds, and you're listening to Clean Radio.
Now it's back to Andrew and Judah.
Here we go. It's been a great night so far.
It has been, and I think we have a love connection here.
A love connection?
Between
Dr.
Judah and himself.
Right.
That's always been a connection.
His middle name is Onanism.
Yes, I have no idea what that means.
You don't know what onanism means? Oh.
No, I
Just
go on
look in
and
the
on.
mirror.
I go on and on.
Enjoy yourself.
Imagine the security I must have to be able to get beat up like this
Every week.
Every
Well,
week.
Every week.
And is it security, or is it just your own pathology.
It's my own pathology, but it's
Yeah.
the confidence of knowing my sheer intellect and genius.
That's great.
Would you consider Judah to be a masochist?
Well, no, I think he likes, you know, I think he likes.
I've never seen him blush so
Other
much,
people.
by the way.
I,
Like,
I think he's hysteric.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
That blushing. Yeah.
Yeah?
Doc, you think I'm hysterical?
Yeah.
I appreciate the compliment. somebody commented.
Only
a-
that, only
a fan of a fan of our show. For some reason, like we have a Facebook page and we have one for Clean Radio, and obviously I have my own personal one. But I keep on getting people that Facebook me instead of the Clean Radio part, and I'm like, just post it on. So one of our fans goes, "Judy, you're ruggedly hand." And that was it. There was nothing after hand. And I was
that's
like,
all they needed.
I was like, that could be one of the greatest compliments I've ever heard. I'm ruggedly handsome.
No,
but you never got the whole thing
I
out.
never got the
It was
whole thing
finished.
out. And I was like, what's after that? And then she wrote something else. She wrote, you know, I'll show it to you during the break.
Dude,
but-
actually, I tried to erase it. It said you're ruggedly handicapped. I was trying to help you out.
Right, I know it wasn't ruggedly handy, because then I would have known they were lying, because I'm not ruggedly handy.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it's fan from Texas.
It's emotionally handicapped.
It's a fan from Texas named Juliet Brown, I think her name is. Yeah.
Wow, we've got
Yeah.
a fan in Texas.
We have a fan in Texas.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, everything's always better in Texas, baby. Yeah.
Wow, I don't even know how to profile that.
I'm not even going to touch it.
Jim actually, I stayed at Jim's apartment last year when he was gone for a few weeks out of town.
I
I'm
didn't. I didn't know about it.
now that I think about it, were there cameras there? I'm like, I was part of like a study. I'm like scared to death now.
You know? I think.
Breaking and entering.
Yeah. I think David Letterman had the same problem.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do they do with that guy that broke into
No,
his house?
it was a woman.
It was a woman,
Yeah.
I thought it was a guy.
No, it was a woman that.
Oh, we're thinking of his former producer that was did something, was trying to blackmail him. But you're right, he had that woman stalker for years.
Yeah, didn't
We
Steve
actually,
Martin
we got to
also-
roll out for the top of the hour in about, 30 seconds here. So I just, what I'm going to do, everybody one more time, and you can give out the 877 number, because you're the genius at that, Judah.
Yes. We're in the studio tonight with the lovely and talented Dr. Jason Coe, and FBI former...
Not so lovely and not so talented.
Yes, I'm going to have to reevaluate our friendship after the show. Jim Clemente. And you're listening to Clean Radio. That's Clean with a K. You can also find us at cleanradio.com. Our number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. We'll be back in a second.
Has been shaken to the top. The shaking through his Cadillac.
Now your hosts for Clean Radio, Andrew and Judah.
All right, welcome back. Here we are, Judah, our second hour
That went fast.
on our 19th show,
19, number 19.
right? We got a great set of guests.
Yeah, we do.
We were just joined by our new guest for
Yes.
the top of the hour,
Mm-hmm.
who's still working out the mic.
Hey, yeah, getting it straight over here.
You got to lift it up.
It's,
We're professionals.
Yeah. You'd think we were in like a real studio. The mics would be
There you go,
like...
right?
The mics would be all...
You just got to talk right into it, Stevie.
oh,
The
yeah.
mics...
Stevie Max, comedian,
Yes.
LA based, right?
Yes, based out of LA, living in Inglewood right now.
All right.
Holla.
We got Dr. Coe here, psychiatrist,
Yes.
works with Clean.
Extraordinaire.
It's extraordinary.
Yes.
I feel like
Right?
I walked in on an intervention here.
Yeah.
You did, man. You were interviewing you.
It's yours.
It's your intervention.
Yes.
Intervention, what's
Right?
up?
We forgot to tell you. Stevie Mack, it's time to get help.
Yeah.
You blacked out. You don't know any of us,
Right.
but we're going to tell you how we love you
It's really
and
good.
why.
And Judah will tell you how he likes his women, I guess.
Right.
Yes.
This is, Judah here was saying, Stevie, I don't know if you probably weren't listening on the way down, but unfortunately here, or fortunately, Judah was saying that Bill Clinton had bad taste in women and that all of his women were ugly.
And what my point was.
You look shocked.
Let's preface this. Let's restate this point. My point was that
No
Bill,
restating. Let's just
no,
stick
no,
with
no.
the
Bill
point.
Clinton was defended by most women in America, and I always say the reason why he was defended by them was because he chose ugly women. Had he chose statuesque Playboy type women, you see, Bill Clinton, the women he chose were attainable women. So every housewife in America was like, I could do that. I could get Bill Clinton.
But if you really think about it, man, the women that came forward who Bill
Right.
Clinton had low self-esteem, and they wanted all of America to know they could get Bill
Bill
Clinton.
Clinton. Yeah.
So the fine ones wasn't coming for
Right.
him.
Like Marky
That's
Post.
what I'm saying.
You never heard from them.
Like Marky Post, the woman on Night Court.
You know, that's just such
That
like
is so 70s,
right. Like who's gonna know that, Judah? Like,
Marky Post, she was hot in the 80s. She was a...
Everything is hot. I mean,
right?
come on.
Like-
How about intellectual? How about a great actress?
Right?
What about that?
You know who one of my favorite
No,
actresses
we're
is?
asking
we don't
you a
want to
question.
know.
Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates, okay? I have had a crush on Kathy Bates
is 5 times uglier than Monica Lewinsky.
Since Misery, I have been in love with Kathy Bates, okay? Okay, so you all don't think I'm some, like...
Did you see Misery? You don't want her coming after you,
Right?
Or
Judah
Fatal
does.
Attraction,
Judah does.
Or Glenn Close after Fatal
Now,
Attraction.
Judah is in that kind of one. We've already discovered tonight
Yeah,
from the
it says,
FBI profile.
Somebody has you
that
tied to a
Judah
bed
is-
and starts hobbling you with an axe or a 5-pound sledgehammer. You know,
Some scream, I say hubba hubba.
Now, come on, Judah. We all know from the show that you have a history of a problem with alcohol.
Yes.
So I can't believe that there aren't women that fell below the Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, are you crazy?
Cut
At
off.
4 o'clock in the morning? The bar is closing? Yes is all you need.
Yes.
Wait.
So
Judah said he never got a 10, but he'll take 5 twos.
And obviously never at the same point.
What makes
How do
you
you
think
follow
that was
that?
ever Judah's choice? I'm
Yeah.
really wondering why you're saying that.
I didn't hear. Sorry, I lost. I had to take my headset off for a second.
It's probably a good
My
thing.
ear was scratching. Yes, let's get back to the guest. He came in all
Right.
the way from L.A. and
We
you're
gotta-
talking
right.
about me.
Yeah, I came hauling ass, man. It's dark out
Father's
there.
Day.
And I'm black, and
Right.
it's Orange County, so I was really debating whether I should wear this.
You wore a black shirt. Black guy with a black shirt. We got a profile here. He says
Yeah.
that doesn't matter though.
in the
We don't racial profile
in the
here.
new millennium. Well, maybe not at AMA 30, but out there by the 405.
405. So hold on.
This is the town white. This is like the town white plate built.
I used to live in Newport Beach. I was like,
Till they kicked you out, or
they did. They hauled my ass off to jail from Newport
But that wasn't
Beach.
because he's black. He just wasn't a
No, it was
Republican.
because I was an asshole. A thieving, conniving person who you wouldn't want in your community. I mean, I really did not.
Why didn't it work with Judah then?
I did not represent the black race good in Newport Beach.
No?
No.
No.
Reggie Jackson did. He lived in
Newport's
the
a big drinking town.
street. Yeah, it's always been. It's a college
Always been,
town.
right? And then they got all the bars along the beach.
Oh, yeah, it's a tourist trap.
A lot of rehabs too.
A lot of runaways.
A lot of runaways.
That was back in the 80s when I lived there, so I participated. So if there's any runaways out there listening and you got my baby, holla. It's Father's Day. They let me know.
Wow, that's brave.
right?
Yeah.
You
Our
just
phone lines just lit up.
Whoa!
Pandora's box.
It's 877.
There is no statute of limitations on
Lord, I mean, you must have some bucks if you want to give away that money like that.
What money? I'm trying to get some money. You'd be surprised.
He's
Some
hoping
kid-
one of the kids was successful.
Come back,
He's hoping there was a football player.
One of them's got to be able to sing, right?
Wait a minute.
America's Got Talent, man.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, Stevie, tell us about yourself a little bit. You comedian. You got a big show coming up, don't you? Like,
I got a big show at 8 p.m. tomorrow night at the Hollywood Improv. It's called Diary of a Crackhead. It's a one-man show depicting my life of rising up from the ashes like a phoenix from a life of, oh my God, you talk about drug addiction, alcoholism, pimping, dealing, prison mentality, and mental institutions. And I come up through all that, and I'm carrying the message of experience, strength, and hope through a comedy show.
this is like a 6-hour comedy show.
No. I initially said it would be 90 minutes, but now I
Right.
whittled it down to saying 60 minutes
Right.
because I don't want people being afraid that I'm going to be up there just doing a marathon, you know.
Right.
You could tell a lot. I was listening to one of my spiels from a meeting that I go to in Marina Del Rey on my way here. I was listening to it going like, wow, I've really grown a lot, you know. And what a blessing that I do have something to transmit and carry other than HIV or gonorrhea and crabs and lice.
Wow. So we sit in the third or fourth row. You're saying?
No, it's not a Gallagher show. I'm just spewing vitriol and watermelon splashings. It's going to be fun. In fact, it's
Yeah.
fun and entertaining. Diary of a Crackhead, man. It's a bold step and statement. Because some of my friends go, well, you always got the naysayers, and people want to take the winds out yourselves and don't trust God, and they go, oh, dude, you really finna blackball yourself in Hollywood. And why? Oh, I guess I'm not going to be getting all those jobs that I am getting now, right? I'm going to deny myself that.
Yeah, because we don't know any famous people that do crack in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, this is a new thing to Hollywood. A crackhead? What?
They're doing crackhead tours with Charlie Sheen. You
And
guys
Flavor Flav is embarking on a pilot
Flav,
tour.
right?
Did you hear?
I didn't know.
No, I did not know this.
Coming out with a new book called Icon, doing a
Right.
tour, a comedy tour.
Smokey Robinson wrote in his autobiography how he was addicted to crack.
And we wonder why his name was Smokey.
Well, it's sort of like name, right.
So do you have like a lot of message in it, or is it all humor, or how
You
did
know what? It's a twofold set. When I do it for like Cocaine Anonymous or big AA and CA conventions and
right?
stuff.
You do
it's
roundups and conventions and
Yeah, I'm
do
doing a
little-
CA convention in Palm Springs.
For those that don't know, that's
August.
Cocaine Anonymous.
Yeah,
Right.
Cocaine Anonymous. It's anonymous, and I'm doing that in Palm Springs in June. But when I do those, I carry a lot of the book message,
Right.
But when I'm doing this, it's going to be more heavy on the comedy side,
Right.
because people are more receptive to a message when they're laughing. And there's some drama in there, and then I just like play the violin. Then you bring them back up. You make them laugh. You make them cry. You put that message in there. Then you bring them back up, and we out of there.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
So is this,
Sounds like an evening out with Judah. Actually.
And it's 5 too.
that's just one conversation about his last conquest.
I don't. Okay, let's get this straight. Okay, to the people listening, because after people listen to the show, I have no chance of ever getting married.
Or late.
Judah,
having
really,
children?
honestly, Judah, do you really think you had that kind of a chance?
You don't blame the show.
Yeah.
Don't be a hater on the show.
But at least it wasn't out in the open. I was trying to conceal it fairly well.
The internet now goes to every continent.
Yes, yes. It's now that everybody has seen me dance.
Every planet.
Right?
Yeah.
We have this Judah dance, which he does on the intros and outros, which you'll get to view. And you can go to cleanradio.com for our listeners and watch Judah dance. He does this goofy-ass dance. It's like, it's like white boy dance, like on acid or something, but he's not on acid anymore. So I don't know.
Why'd you have to go white?
Because
Is it because I'm white?
we have an urban comic. Isn't urban the correct
Is
term,
that
do
an
you think?
insult, calling you an urban comic? I think he's just a
Well,
comic.
the thing about me is
Get
that
past his color.
No, you
I'm
said the white
universal.
thing. I'm just doing the...
Get
we got
past
a
it.
black guy now. But I don't consider myself an urban comic. I'm universal.
I try to
appeal to
get
all
that through to
audiences.
Andrew that there,
It's
we
like
live
the
in a
universal
world.
church.
Nah, we don't live
I
in a
probably
world
have a bigger
anymore with
white
color.
following than black, believe it or not.
Yeah, well,
I play the
Right.
Chitlin circuit, but I also play the sirloin circuit. So.
there you go.
Applebee's.
Big Chuva.
Bechuva.
Literally, I played there a couple times.
My goodness. We do have a call. I guess we're going to put him on. It's Sonny from Rancho Cucamonga, and I was actually out in Rancho Cucamonga today buying a deer antler chandelier. Don't ask why.
Okay.
We won't ask why.
Well, hopefully
So-
Sonny can tell us.
Hello,
Sonny,
Sonny.
you there?
Yeah, what's up, guys? How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you,
Good.
Sonny?
Welcome to Clean Radio.
Right on. Actually, it's my first time calling.
Great.
I have a question for you guys. I wanted to have a question. Yeah. First of all, I have this friend of mine, right? And now we're in high school together. Actually, we're both homeschooled, too, in the same program. And he's 15 and I'm 15. And he's you see, his father smokes, right? Smokes cigarettes, and now he's starting to, like, sneak them a lot, and he likes to use them. And I was wondering, I keep on telling him, John, you can't keep smoking because it's bad for your lungs. You're going to have lung cancer. And I was wondering, maybe if you guys can help me out with that, so that way I can help him get him off of smoking.
Sure, we can talk about smoking. Actually, smoking's kind of a funny thing because, most people in Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever program, or even in addiction treatment centers like our own, nobody really deals with smoking.
No, in
It's
fact,
like-
they encourage people to take a smoking break or whatever. I mean, it's
They say
a
smoking.
very
Is your,
negative
they say
thing.
smoking is your first
No.
addiction and your last addiction.
Well, it's one of the most addicting substances.
Yeah, and
Because it's inhaled, and you constantly need that fix.
Well, I heard that Freud said that, I don't know, you're the psychoanalyst, but that Freud said that if cigarettes had been made pink, people wouldn't have smoked them. I don't
I never heard that.
I don't know about that.
You had a
but-
dream
but-
about that.
But getting back to Sonny's question, I mean,
Right.
certainly, if you're a good friend, you're going to continue to try to do that. But you might want to ask somebody at school to get involved. There's got to be a counselor and so forth. I mean, get somebody who's actually trained to help people, do the right thing and get them involved. I mean, it's not ratting somebody out. It's not ratting somebody out when you're trying to help them.
I thought he was also going to ask a question, which actually, I thought he was going to ask, is smoking a precursor for other things?
Is it a gateway drug?
Is smoking a true gateway drug?
Well, you tell us.
I mean,
Well,
no,
that's-
Judith's still smoking.
That's
Oh, does your mom know that? Can I say that on the?
No, I'm
internet?
trying to cut down a lot. My mom knows I'm trying to cut down a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. But do I think smoking is a gateway? I don't know. I definitely think, I mean, there's definitely studies that they've done with menthol cigarettes, with tons of different cigarettes, so I think smoking probably is a
more on point to what he was asking. It's certainly a gateway to cancer. I mean,
Right.
My mother died of cancer, of lung cancer, and she had been smoking Pall Mall since she was 18 and died at 53. It was a horrendous, drawn-out death. It was it was horrible. And of course, when she started smoking, she didn't know they were putting stuff in it to make her addicted to it. And now we know that stuff, but people are continuing to hurt themselves for some reason.
And it's a serious problem. It's a serious public health problem, and I think you're right to get somebody in the school involved who can be hands-on, because this person's going to need help.
Right.
But don't we pick our battles? As a society, we do have to pick our battles. And I mean, with everything, you're right, smoking is insidious. It's very similar in the sense to alcohol.
We're not going to be facilitators for you.
It's very
We do not
similar.
want you to smoke. You shouldn't be smoking.
Right.
In fact, it's ridiculous that you're smoking.
It's very similar.
Because what kind of
He's gonna ignore that.
an image are you setting for other people?
Trust me, nobody wants my image. If anybody
I get
decides
it.
to look up to me as a role model,
I get it, but you're sitting here trying to tell people to stay clean, and you're not. You're really not.
That doesn't make him a hypocrite. I did some work with the
Oh, he's
No,
a
we
hypocrite.
already
He's already
established
You missed that part.
Let me chime in. I did some work with the Department of Health Services. We found that the way they cater to children with the smoke ads have changed considerably over a period of time.
Sure.
Used to make it look more attractive. But ask your friend, does he value his health at all? And then show him some pictures of healthy lungs versus tarred up and nicotine lungs. And also, there's a number 1-800-NO-BUTS that you can call to get help in cessation if he wants to stop smoking. But a person only going to do what they want to do. So you wanting him to do it is one thing, and a pretty girl wanted him to do it, he probably would quit faster than just because his buddy
pretty
wants
guy.
him to quit. Yeah, pretty guy. Unless, of course, you guys are like that.
So you Stevie, so you smoke crack, right?
Not now.
No, but you smoke crack, right?
I smoked crack.
Not, right, 10 minutes ago. No, but you smoke crack. Right?
Yeah.
Did you smoke cigarettes then?
Yeah.
So did you quit at the same time? Do you still smoke cigarettes?
Man, here's an actual factual. Tobacco is more addictive than nicotine, heroin. Than crack, heroin, and any of the other drugs that are out there.
I think
and
that's
it's the
true.
hardest one to quit. And
Really?
that's why a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Well, that's why they say
say
it's your first addiction and your last addiction.
Yeah, people in AA.
It has to
and
do with the
programs,
pharmacokinetics.
That's why it's one of the last things they ever give up. Because that's.
So you were able to quit smoking?
And I've quit and I've started and I quit and I started. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say
Just
the
on and
problem
off.
that got me started back again was cigars. Nicotine is nicotine.
Yeah,
And
but
you want a cigar, you just gonna want a cigarette.
But that's also a very hopeful thing. If it is the most difficult thing to quit,
Right.
and people do it every day,
Right.
so that's a great thing.
So
I
you're
mean,
saying
you
you can
can
quit
beat
other
this.
things.
You can beat
people
it.
quit every day is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then start
People
the next
beat
day.
it every day. People stop
Well,
it every day.
we had Bob Forrest from Celebrity Rehab on here a few weeks back, and in his rider for Celebrity Rehab, he gets 127 boxes of nicotine gum.
Really?
Yeah, which I think is just
He
fantastic.
didn't take a raise in salary. He
Yeah,
just took a raise in nicotine gum.
Right, so which is like a year's supply for him, I guess, or whatever. But that's a lot of nicotine gum.
And by the way, nicotine gum, and we both have a friend that's been affected by it. If you chew too much of that stuff, it could seriously do something to your heart.
Yeah.
It has a real and it.
They use nicotine to kill roaches. I mean, this stuff's not.
But
great.
a friend of ours was like chewing a lot of it a day. Like he would go to Costco.
Cardiac trouble.
Yeah, he would go to Costco and buy like 6 boxes because it was a good deal. And he bought 6, and
he'd finish it at the end of the day.
And he finished it at the end of the day.
6 boxes a day.
No. But he was probably chewing about 10 or 15 pieces a day. That's
he was addicted to the nicotine.
Yeah. So he was, and it's seriously. And I'm not saying don't try to quit smoking by going. There is a healthy way of going on the gum, getting off smoking.
This is from a
that way.
smoker. We're hearing the healthy ways to quit smoking.
Well, it is one of the healthy ways. I mean, I tried when I was younger Wellbutrin, which is the only other,
Well, it's Chantix now.
which was Zyban in those days. Zyban and Wellbutrin was at that point the only drug in the FDA market that had the same name for the two, for the same. It was the same drug with 2 different names.
Steve is like, just smoke crack, man. The cigarettes go away.
Because you mentioned Chantix, and a lot of people have had suicidal
right.
And my older brother, quit smoking using Chantix, and I said, hey, but people have suicidal thoughts. He said, Stevie, man, that's for weak-minded people. Them people was already thinking about killing themselves. So if they took Chantix, they shouldn't take Chantix. So if you're suicidal, don't take it. It will increase the desire.
All right.
What's your opinion? Just because I was on the phone with somebody the other day, and they were saying that they're on sleep meds. They take sleep meds, and they were saying Ambien. And I gotta tell you, when I hear these side effects on these commercials,
I had to take it when I was going through I went through a bone marrow transplant, and they had me on Ambien for a while, and I would have these violent dreams. I mean, really bloody, horrendous dreams. Maybe it had something to do with what I did for a living, but. There's I think 9 reported cases of people driving while asleep on Ambien. I mean, that's
Stevie just gave you a look. He didn't realize. He's like, what do you do?
What are you doing? I was an FBI profiler, dude. I did serial killer cases and child abduction cases.
So you saw a lot of pictures and stuff.
Now
I saw a lot of real things.
He was one of the investigators.
On
right
the
now.
car ride down, we got to hear the story about was a guy was feeding. What was the story for our listeners?
It was a very grim case, and he abducted a child, and then he killed him, and he fed the child in chili to the searchers that were searching for
and the parents. And the parents.
Wow.
Yeah.
And South Park did a thing on that with Cartman killing the kids. Parents and feeding them in a chili contest.
They actually probably took that. Jim,
that's how to start.
Jim also, if you're familiar with the show Criminal Minds, Jim is the technical advisor and a writer for that show. So one of the story ideas he gave was an episode of it. So I'm guessing South Park probably parried it. Probably parried the Criminal Minds episode.
Yeah,
but that's actually
makes great comedy, doesn't it?
It's great comedy.
That's actually very.
That's not funny.
I was being sarcastic.
Your job's hard tonight.
That's actually very interesting what Jim's talking about because
just don't break out in crack pipes, okay, buddy? It's okay.
When I had my hernia surgery, I had very similar when I had to take the Vicodin. I had intense. I would pass out and have these crazy type of things.
Yeah, I mean, it really was disturbing, and I switched to Lunesta, and that just turned my brain off, which was great. It was a very rare occurrence for me, so I got to go to sleep.
That's 1-800-LUNESTA.
I'm not just going to trash Ambien without giving you an alternative.
Or Trazodone, which we spoke about last week.
Actually, now I take melatonin. That's all. I mean, it's a natural substance that helps you produce serotonin, right, and go to sleep.
But it is amazing. I'm actually very scared when I see these commercials on TV for Ambien, and doesn't this put fear into people?
Well, just any of the drugs where the side effects are worse.
Yeah, with these side effects that they show, and I
got a
don't
headache,
have to
take
show
this
it.
drug.
Yeah, take this. And so does
heart failure. Yeah. Don't take it if you're pregnant.
Well, let's ask the doctor.
Yeah.
I mean,
almost certain
these
death.
disclosures are kind of ridiculous, a lot of them, right? I mean, the odds of the side effects are extremely low.
A lot of people get side effects, but most don't.
Right.
So, everyone has their own chemistry.
So your odds of diarrhea are 1 in 10,000, right? It's like
and it could be auto-suggestion too. They said my leg would shake.
Right now
his leg is shaking right now. By the way.
Right. It's a matter of suggestibility.
And it's always that one person. And it's true because I was in your treatment facility last week talking to a girl that was leaving, and she was talking about a sleep med or something. I can't remember. And she was saying everybody was saying, "Oh, did you get this side effect from it? Did you get that side effect from it?" And it's like all she could think of it was like when
The
she started
negatives and
was the
looking for it.
negatives, and it's like it's just she didn't take the certain things. And with constantly, you hear the same thing in 12-step programs. You constantly hear people putting their, brilliant thoughts and brilliant ideas onto people, and without being doctors or any of that stuff.
Well, and they're talking about their experience,
right.
as if it's going to be someone
Universal.
else's.
But it's always the
experience.
people that are louder that have had the bad experience. Right. You never hear the people that go, "Oh, yeah, really, Judah."
And they're the ones who think they know it all, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I openly admit I'm allergic to Wellbutrin, but I'm one of the rare probably people that gets the anxiety attacks from the Zyban when I try to quit smoking.
That's pretty common.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
But that fact is true with everything too. That people are more readily to talk about their bad experiences than
Right.
their good ones. You go on Yelp
Right.
That's
and
right.
you look at a
Right.
restaurant that
Right.
you love, and
Right.
watch how many people have bashed.
Right. It's very rare that you get people going on there going, but I made the mistake because I went to Floyd's Barber Shop and I was like, wow, so amazed at how good they were like 6 months ago. So I decided to sign up on Yelp and post my I get Yelp email constantly now. I am sorry.
Hey, at least somebody's emailing you, Judah.
That's true. That's true. And my spam.
And it's spam, right?
You were supposed to use a junk mail.
I didn't
account.
think about it, and I posted it right away. I won't say why I posted it because I don't want to get.
You got a free coupon. Let's
No,
do it.
because I thought the stylist was a hot chick. So I was trying to find her through Yelp.
So it
Are you
looked like
serious?
Yes,
Bates.
I will admit to that.
What did
right
you?
She looked like
Oh,
Kathy
my
Bates, huh?
now.
You know what, Judah? Just keep smoking.
You're
cigarettes.
listening to
Think about
Clean
it.
Radio. That's Clean with a K. We're in the studio tonight with the lovely and talented Dr. Jason Coe.
Got Stevie Mac.
Stevie Mac, very funny comic from Inglewood. In the house, represent, and former FBI profiler, Jim Clemente. And the number here is 877-830-830. That's 877-830-830. We'll be back in a couple minutes. You're listening to Clean Radio.
Streets of London, panic on the streets of Birmingham. I wonder to myself, could life ever be saved?
No, I'm serious.
We're back on the air, guys. Wow, what a break. Judah went out for a smoke, and
And we're all suffering
we're all
from secondhand
suffering from
smoke now.
secondhand, drift. It's
You're
not
all
even
going to hell.
smoke. It's
That's
just
all I'm going to
drift.
say. You're all going to hell.
Exhalation.
Right?
The second hand.
So during the break, Stevie and I were talking with the group. Judah was out smoking with his addiction, and Steve was telling us. I was talking about he's got his own radio show,
Stevie Mac Radio.
which I checked out before it came on, and I got on YouTube, and it was like I was just like, this is gonna be a tough one because this guy talks so fast on the radio show. It's like it's like auctioneering. He's like,
He's like
hey, I'm Stevie Mac. He's
He's like that car guy. Remember the car guy?
Right? He's got you said, you got half an hour for the show.
half an hour show.
So you just plug it in. So give us an opening, like a typical
Okay,
opening.
Stevie Mac Radio comes on Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. That's the call time. Be there, be square. And I got a call-in number that people can call in, but I want you to visit StevieMac.com. That's STEVIEMACK.com. Call that and check that and check your boy out and see what I'm doing over there. You can see where I'm performing at, a place near you. And you can also see Stevie Mac TV over there. We got it all, baby.
Right? That's half an hour right there. That's half an hour of our radio show
That's
in
13 seconds.
13 seconds.
Sound like I'm selling what?
Right? We're so inefficient.
He's selling
we need
pigs
some,
and cows and
right? We need some lessons from Stevie there.
and Judah dated all of them.
what an easy target.
Right? Hey, we got a professional profiler, Judy. You have to take this seriously.
You do. You have to really look at yourself.
Right. It's okay. I'll pass. That's why I smoke, so I don't have to look at myself.
Gotcha. Yeah, unfortunately, the rest of us do.
Wow, Jim's in rare form tonight. I'm getting beat up by my profiler.
I know your profiler friends. It's
it's
just
just-
like
You invited me.
It's just destroying me.
Actually, you blindsided me. That's why I'm just paying you back. That's all. It's no big
I
deal.
did blindside him accidentally. I forgot to tell him that we shoot the show.
on so you can
Didn't
see it on the
realize I was
internet.
getting shot tonight.
Yeah, didn't know the video was involved.
If he wore his pork pie hat, he would have wore his pimp hat.
We're actually going to be streaming the show pretty soon because
That's
Patrick has the technology now to start
Yeah, we
streaming
start
us.
streaming live.
Cool.
Hey, listen, I didn't know we were shooting either. I'm glad I shaved. That's all. I could have came here looking like a unga bunga. You know? On camera. is
An
off the
unga
chain.
bunga?
That's a technical term, yes.
As a profiler, what is an
Yes.
unga bunga?
That's for racial profiling.
Stevie, is tomorrow night,
Man.
Stevie, is tomorrow night your first show doing this, or?
Actually, I've done it twice for Cocaine Anonymous area convention.
Mhm.
I did 30-minute versions of it, and every time I speak on a panel or as a speaker at an AA or Cocaine Anonymous meeting, I do some of the comedy portion of it, but not
Cool.
all the way. So I'm constantly practicing it, and so tonight I was just writing out footnotes on how the direction I'm gonna take it in, because it will be the first night doing it for a secular audience.
Are you nervous?
Right.
Not at all, man. My wife asked me the same thing. Are you nervous? No, this is what I do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm telling my story. That there's no way to fail.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay,
That's
that's my
great.
story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, it's an amazing, and even when I went around the country and around the world speaking about these violent crimes, I always tried to infuse it with comedy because you were right. People do listen more, and they take the message away a lot better when they're not always thinking down. I mean, it's just some sort of repulsion that happens then.
You got to find a way to lighten it up.
Which is why-
because these are awful subjects.
Which
Yeah,
is
they
why
are.
a certain news network has recently gotten rid of a very top rank person, was because one of the reasons was because like he was depressing
He was very
everybody.
dour, yeah.
Everybody was depressed, and he has extremely high ratings.
High suicide
but
rate.
everybody would like that listen to the show was extremely depressed afterwards, so they got rid of him.
Well, it's interesting though. I think those shows like Criminal Minds are popular because of I think a real basic primitive brain reaction. I think people see this stuff. It's like rubbernecking at a crash scene or a crime scene, and people just. I mean, I think your brain tells you, look, learn, listen, so that this doesn't happen to you. I think it's a self-protective mechanism that those shows sort of actually feed into.
And it's not always so that this doesn't happen to you. It's because we all love to watch a train crash. We love to see a train
Right.
wreck.
Or the
Oh my God! Look at that.
Right, or the training, like my wife watches Snapped all the time. I'm convinced
What's
she's gonna
Snapped?
kill me. It's like it's just shows of women that like trying to kill their husbands.
Well, I have an interesting question for you.
Yeah, you better.
I go on vacation. I come back with 9 of them on the DVR.
Jim,
I'm like,
let
hey,
me-
wait a minute.
Do you enjoy watching when you're in the highway, you see an accident? Do you look?
On the other day when I was coming down this way to Camp Pendleton, and there was an accident right in front of me. I didn't stop and look. I got out and helped the people.
Okay, there's a reason I
Yeah,
asked
right.
is because
Unlike Judah.
I don't enjoy watching it either, and the reason I'm asking that is because we both had this conversation before the show. Was we both don't enjoy NASCAR, and I'm convinced most people that enjoy NASCAR are waiting for a wreck. I mean,
it's
why
the
else?
most exciting point in it. It's the risk that
Yeah.
these drivers are taking that
Right.
people are enthralled with.
That and at any moment they could spin off the track. I don't get.
You don't think competition or the technology or anything has anything
No, I
to do
don't
with
think as people are sitting in the stands in Alabama drinking beer, they're
He has just
Wow.
alienated
Right,
half
like, there
this
goes-
country.
I mean, I'm
Actually,
being honest.
175,000 people gather to watch those events. I mean, they're
Yes,
very
huge.
popular.
It's
events.
the most popular thing,
spectator
right?
sport in
It's the most-
America.
right. And
Popular
soccer is
sport,
the most
right.
popular thing around the world, and country music's the most popular music in America.
and
It's
so
sort of a sport for rebels. I mean, the whole sport is
That's how
based
hip-hop
on being able
was.
to
know what?
escape from the police, right?
all
Superman
beautiful
Park.
women like NASCAR and country music. So this explains everything, Judah. We now know. We figured out your problem.
But contrary to that, all women that like NASCAR and country music aren't necessarily beautiful.
But I can say most
You
of them.
two should get together and have a routine.
Stevie, I can say most of them are white.
We can say that definitely.
I don't know. I don't
You know
know.
what? I gotta tell you, I got kicked off of Country Music TV. Yep.
Got
CMT?
kicked off.
CMT?
What did you do?
Well, me and 2 portly friends of mine are the chocolate chip dancers, and we dance Chippendale style with our bow ties. We won on VH1 $5,000 in the Dance Cam Slam competition.
Really?
And we were on Country Music TV, slated to win, and they kicked us off saying, "Oh, well, you know what? This doesn't really reach our demographic." And then the very next week, 2 white guys, same song, same costume, went on and won a 10 grand doing our steps.
Really?
So what I say is racist, yeah, but at the same time, am I gonna say anything bad about it? No, because MTV owns both Country Music Television and VH1. So
I didn't know that.
I won on one, kicked off the other.
I know they don't own BET. That I know for sure.
Well, they probably do.
No, because
White folks own them.
Robert Johnson owns that.
No. He's just the guy who's in control. Actually, Rupert Murdoch owns it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You see, you just learned something new.
Rupert Murdoch's been buying up a lot of stuff. Didn't he just buy up, Mark Burnett?
Oh, he did,
Mark
really?
Burnett, yeah.
Burnett Productions? Wow.
Half of it, yeah.
All the reality TV stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another thing.
Taking over.
I was scrolling through today. I was scrolling through the guide, and I see the Chloe and Lamar thing, and I got it, and I didn't watch it. I
don't even know what that is. What is
it's
that?
Lamar Odom, the basketball player, the forward for the Lakers.
Oh, it's like a reality show.
Reality show,
Okay.
and I bypassed it, and I was like, who watches it? I mean, who really?
Somebody.
Who cares about these two people?
People who don't have anything else.
That's exactly right. I mean, it is. It's the truth.
Comedians like that show, right?
Because they can make fun of it. Because they can make fun of it. It's like it's a great, But who really watches? I mean, it's.
Well, we was just talking about that the other day. Like Kim Kardashian's engaged to a basketball player. Khloe Kardashian married a basketball player. They're going to come up with their own new show called Kardashian Husbands, basically, because they got these guys tied around their fingers with these big rings and everything. Yeah, and they can't take criticism. Kim Kardashian kicked me off of her Facebook page because I critiqued some lousy Photoshop job she did. So there, Kim.
But I mean, I think there is in America. There's definitely an addiction to not having to think about. I mean, watching these wrecks somehow makes your life a little better.
Addiction's a strong word here. Addiction's a strong word.
I do think it's an addiction.
You do. Well, maybe TV is an addiction.
I definitely think
compulsively watching TV and
people
avoiding
are
your
addicted
life.
to these reality shows. Look at the numbers for Jersey Shore. Look at the numbers for. I can't imagine anybody in their right mind.
It is a drug.
It is a drug because nobody in their right mind, nobody of sound mind and body, can watch one of these shows and say, this is great. This is, humanity
I don't know.
has...
Dr. Ko, they've said for you go back through history and it was like, oh, you got to stop your kids from listening to the radio because they're going to lose their minds. And then, it was like, then it was TV and now it's the internet is the big boogeyman. And here we have Judah, once again, going back to TV. He's forgotten about the internet as the big boogeyman. He's, what do you think?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Culture shapes people, people shape culture. I think celebrity is, I don't know. I just moved to LA and I'm amazed at the number of people out here just come here because they want to be famous. They want to be seen.
They want to be somebody.
Yeah. Well,
doesn't that sort of point to some degree to identity disorders?
I think so. We're seeing a lot.
Unless people are truly talented.
Right. But there's a lot of
people don't know.
As our culture becomes more chaotic, identities become more confused.
Well, Reese Witherspoon said it a couple weeks ago. We didn't hear it live because we were on the air, but she was at the video, whatever, the MTV Movie Awards. And she said, you don't have to take off your dress. You don't have to send naked pictures of yourself to be famous. You don't have to have a reality show and to do these things to get ahead. And I do believe that as a society, we've taught shortcuts,
right?
And if you constantly, Scotty obviously is on Facebook.
Did your naked photos get you more famous than your show at the Improv?
Yeah,
or which have more?
Well, with 70% of the following being 40-year-old men, chocolate chip dancers has got us famous in that arena. Yeah,
well, that's great.
But my news program, Stevie Mac at Night, they're getting a lot of buzz going. I do short news bursts, breaking news. Flavor Flav's coming out with the book Icon. He did $6 million worth of crack cocaine by smoking $2,600 a day for 2 years straight.
Is that what he said?
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
He's like trying to go for Wilt. He's trying to go for like a Will Chamberlain.
How does a guy like Flavor Flav stay? How much crack were you smoking at your worst?
I wasn't one of those.
Look, it's like I can't remember.
But it's like when drug addicts say how much they use, you always have to divide it by 2 or 3. It's sort of like women it's like when men say how many women they slept with, you divide it. Women, you multiply it by 3. But with drug addicts, you tend never to believe the usage. For the most.
Steve, it was crack. What took you down? Had you been drinking and doing other things before that? Or?
Oh yeah, I started partying at an early age. Well, actually, I got started late. I didn't start drinking until I was 10 years old.
Right.
And and then
that's late these days. You waited. That's like late these days.
He already had 2 kids.
I was right enough chuckling. Experiment with drugs over the years, man. It was all about a party. Whatever you had, that was my favorite. What's your favorite? What you got? PCP, marijuana, crack. But yeah, eventually crack cocaine and heroin. Those who combine speedball. Oh my God.
You're
So
shooting?
how did you get out of
Yeah.
it? How did you get out of it?
I had to get in a detox and find this 12-step program. And the 12-step program helped me get in touch with a power greater myself. And just it's a series. It's a series of tools that I use now, which is I gotta say, my experience, strength, and hope now comes from recovery, carrying a message, and being of service.
Good.
Those three things. That's what's helping me on a daily basis. It's a daily reprieve. You're never really out of it. It's like being in quicksand. You got the rope, but you're never all the way out. Once you let go of that rope, your ass is through, and you're gonna sink again. So yeah, it's a constant struggle, a daily reprieve.
I love how he keeps on looking at the camera as he's talking.
Yeah,
Doing this thing with his lips, doing like the Paris Hilton lips, going.
It's funny how you focus on that there, Judah.
Right?
Well, that's all I can see with the
The
microphone
profiler
blocking
has
my-
noted Judah's
my,
attraction to Stevie's lips.
I must look like Kathy Bates.
With a good tan.
You're never a fan.
Oh, wow. Watch out. Judah might have to take a bathroom break. Right?
Part of that 70%.
I thought this was clean radio. Come on.
Yeah, it is.
It's clean with a
Clean
K.
with a K.
Right,
Clean with
the
a
K,
K.
right. The K is for fun.
For
So-
killer fun.
Killer fun, that's right.
That's how we spell
K
fun
lean,
in treatment.
baby.
Clean with a K. K for fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we talk about, we have a lot of comedians on. We have basically one a week. And we always like to ask them the tough question, which is, were you doing comedy before you got clean?
Yes. In fact, I started doing comedy. I was in plays and stuff as a youth. Was in the Young Saints Academy when I was 11. But comedy itself, I started in 1991 at the Comedy Store doing it. But I never wanted to go on stage high,
Right.
So when I started getting back high again, it was taking me away from my game. I was not going uploaded. I did go uploaded once, and it didn't feel good. I was high on crack on stage,
Really?
and it felt like everybody was watching me.
Wasn't that the point?
Yeah, it's like the worst probably place to do crack is if you're a stand-up comic
So
on stage.
what
doing
you're saying is
comedy.
crack gave you better reality testing.
What the hell are they looking at?
So now being sober, right? Is it made your career obviously better, right? I mean,
No doubt, man. Because being sober, I'm of clear mind and a clear conscience, and I got a focused agenda. My agenda is real focused. I used to be scatterbrained. Let me just tell you, I wanted to get this book called The Power of Now, so I ordered it online, and they sent me a book called Driven to Distraction. The book is about living, teens and adults, children and adults living with ADHD. And so I said, you know what? I believe in God, and I said, anything happens is not by mistake, so I'm going to read this book. So I started reading it, found out I got it.
Oh, really?
ADHD, yeah, and it started showing me how to live with it and to cope with it, find out why I'm always late everywhere I go. This is what I need to do. I need to have schedules, and I need calendars, and I need to keep notes in front of me. And so I'm using that. What a trip, huh?
Wow.
You get things because you're clear. When you open yourself up and go, okay, I'm going to allow perfection to guide my life instead of me trying to guide it, because I'm not perfect.
well, it's that willingness to change.
Honesty, open-minded, and willing.
Yeah.
Gotta be willing.
Gotta be willing, huh?
Yeah.
Jim.
Just hope, Judah.
It always comes back to me.
You're the host.
Co-host.
Are you willing?
Oh my God! I'm staring at a guy with a Marilyn Manson shirt on.
Can we stop? Can we
Okay.
stop the smoking by next week with willingness?
Oh my God!
I think we should have a
I'll
practical.
tell you what. I'll make you.
We love you,
I think we should have.
I'll make
a
everybody.
practical-
I'll make you a deal in here.
Right?
You ready?
Uh-oh.
You have to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah. I can take off my clothes and lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Go to the bathroom and lose.
Yeah, right.
So getting back
We're
to it,
definitely
I've cut down a lot.
I've heard this 5 times.
I have
tonight.
cut back tremendously so.
How did that work with crack?
Well, let's
Cut down crack.
I hear sound effects. I thought
With
that was Dr.
cigarettes,
Co.
the thing about cigarettes, you got to pick a date. You got to pick a date and make that the target date.
You know what my
and
date
stick
is?
with it.
July 30th, 2065.
Well, yeah.
The day you died.
You got to pick a realistic date. Let me go
That's
right
not a
now.
realistic date.
Yeah.
If he's gonna keep smoking, it's gonna be a lot sooner than that.
How does it always come back to me? My God.
Because
care about
you're the addict that's still smoking.
I am the addict that still smokes. I'm not the addict. I'm the alcoholic that still
Well,
smokes.
you're
Okay,
right
please.
now. He's not an addict. Listen to this.
I am an
I love it.
alcoholic that still
He's
smokes.
addicted to the most addictive substance,
That's like
nicotine,
saying
And,
I'm a
and he's not
dog
an
and I'm a
addict.
coffee and
canine.
caffeine.
And caffeine.
Yeah.
2 amphetamines. That's great. 2 stimulants.
I'm watching his face as he's
Well,
agreeing. Like he's shaking his head
The
up and
difference
down.
between addict and alcoholic is like me saying I'm a man and I'm a human being. It's the same thing.
You know, it's funny. That is a debate that people still do have,
And especially Judah.
especially me. But they're about the difference between addiction and alcoholism. I mean, you do have a separate. You know, you have a Narcotics Anonymous, which is different than an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in some ways. And people say a drug is a drug is a drug is a drug, but I mean, you guys are the professionals. Is a drug a drug a drug a drug?
Well, scientifically, what's happening is the receptors are the same inside the alcoholic and the addict. Is that on your synapses, the way it receives the drug and identifies with it, it stays in that shape. Whereas normal people, it comes in there and it goes, and their synapses don't change and become what's the word I'm looking for? Addicted.
Right.
And have to have.
But here's the reason I'm asking that. By nature, if Jim here, who's not an addict and alcoholic, if Jim for the next 30 days decided to, if this, shot heroin, right? Day 31, he would need heroin.
Just for no reason.
I am not going to do that, by the way.
no, and he wouldn't do that. But day 31, he would need it. He would physically need the heroin, right? Wouldn't
Sooner than that, but yeah.
Right. Everybody, but if you drank alcohol for 30 days straight.
Well, it depends on the person.
Right, that's what I'm
Some
saying. But I'm saying
do
only,
need it at that point.
Only the alcoholic would probably need it on day 31. Regular person might be a little tired on day 31. If you drank for 30 days straight and you're non-alcoholic, day 31, would you need that alcohol?
Probably a little, but you could detox quickly.
Let me muddy the waters a little more.
Go for it.
Physical dependence isn't necessarily addiction.
Right.
Right.
Okay. It can lead to addictive behavior because you don't want to go into withdrawal. But they're not necessarily synonymous. Addiction is a behavioral syndrome.
Right.
Where people use a substance to the point where it starts to affect, their life, their work, their relationships, and they try and stop and they can't. And even though they know the consequences are bad, and that's kind of your problem with cigarettes.
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, stay off me for right now.
It's easy, isn't it? It's easier talking about others.
Not
isn't it,
everybody
Judah?
has to come back to
You
Judah.
know what? We're going to take a break, and then we're
Okay.
going to come back to you, Judah.
The number here is 877-8-830-830. That's 877-8-830-830. You're listening to Clean Radio. That's Clean with a K.
And we're going to
back.
listen to Husker Du on the way out. Another great band that Judah doesn't.
Yeah, that
Respect.
nobody in America knows. Or in the studio.
Well, I like them.
Who is it?
Husker Du.
Okay. Anybody raise their hands if they know who Husker Du
Look at
is
5
that they've
people.
ever heard. That's 0.
Husker Du.
Engineer knew.
Be right back.
Bye. There we are. Welcome back to the last 10 minutes of Clean Radio this Sunday
6
night.
minutes. 6 minutes.
Oh, now you're going to get all picky.
I'm going to get technical. But Jimmy actually asked a good question.
Okay.
Before you came running back
is
from
it
the
a,
bathroom.
Is it a 5-minute question?
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Well, waste of time.
Is it possible to
We need Stevie's fast voice for this one.
the way the way that you can have alcohol abuse and alcohol addiction, and that they're two different things? Is it possible to have, crack abuse that isn't at the level of addiction or
heroin
abuse?
Yeah. I think cocaine, yes, for sure.
I think both yes, but that doesn't make it good for you.
Right.
It's still abuse.
But aren't those? I mean, it was my understanding that drugs like crack and even meth, cause addiction very rapidly. I mean that you basically need it, you want
Right.
it, you don't know how to let go.
I mean, I personally know a lot of people that have used cocaine, and a lot of people have used heroin and didn't become full-blown
Really?
addicts. Yeah. Yeah, I lived in New York City. And
I've never,
like,
but I mean, I guess you lived in the Manhattan in the 80s. Or
yeah,
90s,
I
but
mean, there was a lot of people using cocaine.
I guess
You're over
We used
here
to go-
laughing. What's
we
your
used to go to
experience?
Riverside Park in New York, and it would be nothing but crack vial tops. I don't know if people even remember them, but like crack used to come in like
Yeah.
vials, and you just go to Riverside Park, and it would be littered with the colored caps.
my
you know
experience
what I
with
mean?
crack is watching New Jack
You
City.
know, I went to college in Boston,
Right.
and same thing there.
Right? Just colored caps everywhere. You know, and the vast majority of people we know from the studies, we know that, you know,
A lot of people experiment. and
experiment with drugs and don't become addicted.
Yeah.
But you think a
know
lot of people experiment? I mean, I could understand a lot of people experimenting with coke, but heroin?
Yeah,
that's
heroin. Well, first of all, there's lots of forms. Heroin.
I'm saying shooting heroin, smoking heroin.
Most people don't start off shooting
right,
heroin.
but most
let's be
people that
honest.
get
I
to
mean,
the point of shooting
did.
heroin are probably what you'd call.
I mean, no,
I mean,
when I used heroin.
Is
I
it safe
thought-
to say that if you're at the point where you're shooting heroin, you have a problem with it?
Not necessarily.
Not really.
I mean, you have a problem that you're shooting heroin, and obviously, anyone that's shooting heroin,
Right.
that's not a good thing. That's a problem.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, but are you addicted, fully addicted? Or can you just stop? Could a person shoot heroin once and never do it again? Yes, absolutely.
They got people who use it as a recreational drug, and it's called chipping. And
Yeah.
they shoot it every now and then on weekends or at parties and stuff. But the difference is that cocaine is psychologically addicting, whereas heroin is more physiological.
Right.
You have to have the heroin, or you
Oh,
get a
yeah,
flu-like
let
symptom.
me throw this at you. There have been cases where people have become addicted to street drugs that were so weak that when they brought them in, they didn't have a withdrawal syndrome. They didn't detox, but they were still addicted.
Well,
To the
marijuana.
activity.
Yeah.
Right, well, we talked about that, I think, a couple weeks ago, where they were exposing crack addicts, not even to crack, but just the pipe and a lighter.
Yeah.
And they would have
It would trigger them?
yeah, it would
Yeah.
fully trigger them. They had the full dopamine response in their brain. It lit their brain just like if they had done a hit.
Well, it's something we talk about.
So-
It's something we also talk about is that half of the high is getting high. Half of the high is the before the high is scoring.
right, addicted to the behavior.
Right. It's
you know,
it's going to
lifestyle.
buy the drugs. It's going to get all that stuff goes into.
We see that especially with gambling addiction, where people actually they don't care whether they lose the bet
Right.
or not. It's everything that happens up until they find out whether they lose the bet. or
Right.
not.
It has
So
nothing
that
to
they
do
get
with
to
the-
place the action. That they get to wait for the card to turn. Once the card turns, they could give a shit. Excuse me. Whoa!
That's
I can't
number
believe it.
3.
It's number 3
That's
in
number
19
3.
shows. Anyway, but they're
And how
pushing
many
the
do I
chips
have?
out. 4.
You lie. Haven't cursed once.
Look, we got 2 minutes left. And
Let's thank our guests. Let's.
I really think, and let's let them plug what's
Yes.
going on, right?
Yes.
So, should we start with Stevie?
the wonderful.
Sure, Stevie Mac Radio can be listened to Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. and everything's at StevieMac.com, StevieMac.com. Go ahead and check it out, and you can find out where I'm performing at a place near you. And if it's not near you, come anyway.
And your show tomorrow night?
Yeah,
Is
Diary
it
of a
sold out?
Crackhead. Not
Can you
yet.
still get tickets?
Not yet. You can still get tickets online at StevieMac.com. It's on the front page right there. Diary of a Crackhead makes his debut at the Hollywood Improv, 8 p.m. tomorrow, June 20th. Hollywood Improv. You want to check that out.
Is there anything I can't get at StevieMac.com?
You can't, you can't get an autographed copy of Kathy Bates' new book. Judah thinks I'm hot. You can't get that.
And Jim, what do you got going on?
I got a show with myself and John Douglas on A&E. John Douglas is the guy who started the Behavioral Analysis Unit, and we're doing it in partnership with Mark Burnett Productions and Jamie Bruce Productions, and it should be coming out soon on A&E.
Called
Profilers.
Profilers.
Yeah.
great.
It's a reality show. It's a reality documentary series where we're actually going out to different jurisdictions and helping them solve difficult crimes.
Very cool.
Fascinating.
Dr. Coe,
That is
I'd
pretty
just like
cool.
to thank you once again for
And he'll be
being in the
appearing
studio.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Clean Treatment Center.
Clean
If
Treatment
anyone would
Center.
like to come in and get some help, and Judah,
Well,
thank you for being such a good co-host tonight.
You got it, and both of us will be appearing at the Clean Treatment
Treatment Center all week.
All week.
Thanks for having me, Judah.
Oh, you got it, Jim.
And we'll see our listeners or let them hear us again next week.
You're listening
Sunday
to Clean
at 10
Radio.
p.m.
That's
Clean
Clean with a
Radio.
K. No, we're moving time soon, but
Are
that's
we-
not next
not
week.
next
That's 2
week.
weeks.
Yeah, we're going to be moving to 8 p.m.
8 p.m., yes.
So our late listeners are going to have to maybe watch us on the internet.
Yes.
Anyway, we're out of
Just
here.
listen early.
We're getting cued here. So everybody have a good night and a good tomorrow.
Don't smoke
Be
crack.
safe.
Don't smoke crack.
Don't smoke anything.
In the dope
The preceding was a paid program. Opinions expressed are those of the program sponsors and not necessarily